Welcome back to Scotch and a Beer with Officer Dan. This time I'm coming at you from my sim rig, which I haven't played for a long time, but I just re-downloaded Assetto Corsa and started installing all of the crap that I needed to do that. So I figured this would be a good place to do this from. I'm over here at Tamada Sportsland, just laying down some laps, you know? It's a good time. I don't normally recommend drinking and driving unless you're on a sim, and by all means you should be doing that. In the last couple of episodes, I randomly became Danny George's spotter. I did a round of Pro-Am where we met Gina, hung out with Stay Crushing, and went to a frat house that had some sweet, sweet milk dispensers. Did I mention it had boobies? Now technically we're going back in time just a few weeks. This is right before I actually left with Danny George to go to Atlanta. We filmed Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 3, and that is what this episode is going to be today. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you do like these videos in any way, shape, or form, like I said, I drop them every single Monday. It's a half an hour of time that you're never going to get back. But if you throw me a sub, I'll greatly appreciate it. I'll take Subway too, that works. But first, Scotch and a beer. Today's beer is one of my all-time favorites, and you can only get it seasonally. They don't actually release it all year round. I need to check and see if I'm actually in focus. Anyway, I'm coming at you with the Shiner Holiday Cheer. This is a absolutely amazing barley pop. I like Shiner normally, but this one is a old world Dunkelweizen brewed with Texas peaches and roasted pecans. It's a dark wheat flavored ale. Good Lord, is it good. And what I'll end up doing is stocking up on a bunch of 12 packs just to have throughout the year so I can slowly sip on them as I find time to do so. So here's to you, Shiner, for brewing a keeper. Ah, peach and pecan goodness. I'm going to put this here so I don't spill it with my elbows while I'm skid racing. And today's Scotch is going to be number 2 out of that 3-pack that I bought, the Grange Stone. This is going to be another Highland single malt. This is going to be a rum cask finish double maturation. First stage is matured in specially selected white oak casks. Second stage is finished in the finest premium rum casks. Again, these are going to be younger scotches, and that's okay. This pack was cheap, and I needed scotches for Scotch and a Beer. And immediately, the first thought into my head is those little Tootsie Rolls, but the vanilla version, the one that comes in the blue wrapper. I'm sure you guys have seen them, had them on Halloween. That is the first thing that strikes me, is maybe vanilla toffee, kind of some maybe sugar cane. Definitely has some floral notes. Let's give it a try. That's actually super smooth for being such a young Scotch. I actually end up liking these rum cask finishes. Stay Crushing recommended me the rum cask finish on one of the other ones, and that was a fantastic Scotch. This one isn't bad either. I think this whole 3-pack was like $40, so if you do find this one, I'd definitely give it a try. The Grange Stone. Not bad. So as I said before, I wasn't actually Danny George's spotter yet. We had just finished filming and then I left to go do that. So this is kind of the run-up until we get to that very point. And there was one really cool thing that happened that I didn't actually get to do, and I really, really wish that I would have been able to. So I got a random email from an address that I didn't know who it was. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll answer this. It was just, hey, how do we get in contact with Dan Brockett? And I said, I am he, how can I help you? It was a lady named Angie, and Angie represented a slew of music video producers and directors and so on and so forth in the Great South. I cut my finger on something. Probably this thing, I'm gonna guess. I don't want to have to memorize this whole thing because it'll take me way too long, so I'm just going to read the email that I got from Angie. Hi, my name is Angie, and I rep a roster of music video / commercial and feature film directors in Nashville. One of my award nominated directors. Wes Edwards saw your Motorcycle versus Car Drift Battle 2 video online, along with millions of other people, it looks like. Smiley face. He was struck by how well executed and shot it was, especially with your driving abilities as Officer Dan. Air quotes. As with all new music video projects, music labels send over the track along with a solicit to a group of directors that feel confident to draft the treatment concept to visually promote the song for the world to see. Capitol Music sent over the up-and-coming single for Dierks Bentley titled 5150. And I will admit that I had to Google who Dierks Bentley was. Turns out he's a country music singer, for those of you that don't know. Anywho, Wes listened to the song and immediately connected the music video to the visuals he remembered from your YouTube video. He showed Dierks. Dierks was impressed. And in case you're not aware, the term 5150 is a police terminology for crazy one on the loose. The idea struck him to have a cop drifting a car in hot pursuit of the crazy person, air quotes, as portrayed by the lyrics of the song. In lieu of the car chasing motorcycles, we thought a more rural mode of transportation, rural meaning redneck, to tie in to the plot of the video would be a couple of high-end ATVs. I will gladly send over an example of the video that presents Wes's concept, cut to the actual song, so that you can get an idea of what we're working with. I think upon seeing those images and videos, you will agree that the end result will be a huge success. That's where you come in. I was curious to see if you had any interest / availability / access to that particular cop Mustang used in the actual video, and if you would be willing to be Officer Dan for a huge billboard selling country badass. We feel you would be perfect for the role and would love to speak to you about the project further. We'll be shooting in Atlanta, Georgia on April 29th and 30th. Obviously, if this is an option for you, we would fly you out and take care of all the expenses, etc. I'm also in contact with Ryan Sage at Formula D to seek out drivers and car opinions, but wanted to gauge your interest first. Number one, baby. The video just got green-lighted Friday, so we are working towards pulling triggers to get everything together. The video will air on CMT and GAC along with online music video platforms. You would definitely have some great exposure / camera time available to you. Let me know if you're interested, and I'd be happy to give you a call to discuss further. Thank you, and I look forward to your reply. So that was a really random email that I received out of the blue. Don't even know how they got my email address. I didn't really have it anywhere public at this point. So that was weird. So I did what any other person in my position would do. I asked the person whose car I borrowed for Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 3, who happened to be Jim Guthrie. So I sent Jim the email, basically, and Jim kind of took over from there. So Jim shot the production company a number that would make small baby Jesus cry, and needless to say, they didn't get back to me. I think he wanted something like 30 grand to rent it with all the travel costs and everything, so obviously they were going to say no to that. I reached back out like a week later and said, hey, did you guys ever get in contact with Jim Guthrie and figure out the details on getting the Mustang out there? And she replied with, yeah, sorry, we picked somebody else. The budget was a little too low for what he wanted for the car. And I was like, well, I could have driven. And they were like, sorry, we already picked somebody. Oh. In hindsight, I probably should have pushed a little harder right after I sent that email to Jim to see what the details were. I just kind of let it in his hands. He's really good at this stuff, and I wasn't. So I let it ride. I let it ride a little too far, and I missed out to drive anything in the 5150 video for Dierks Bentley. Bummer. Can't win them all. Anyways, onwards to the lead up to Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 3. With help from Car Crafters, Motiva, and Andy from Race Fab, we got the front end of the car back together. We had those makeshift lower control arms on there that were on like version 3 at this point, because one of the times we pulled out into the parking lot of Car Crafters and it just ate a fender as I was turning for the first time, just snapped it in half. Turns out designing lower control arms is tougher than we thought. We took the car out to Top Drift and broke 2 more sets of those lower control arms. We had extra prototypes that we brought with us just in case something was to happen, and sure as shit, it happened. I had a really bad weekend, but I got to meet Gina, so everything was fine. But the car was still running, so I considered that event a win. It just couldn't keep a control arm underneath it. Now the car was making about 500 horsepower on its brand new Garrett GTX 3582R, which, if you know RBs, is about the time they start to shit themselves. Up until this point, the RB had been a great motor for me. I had beat the living crap out of this motor for almost 2 full seasons now, going through Pro-Am, building this thing up, getting in practice runs, doing local events. It was just a phenomenal motor. It's the same motor that I originally had swapped with Andy all those years ago. So I figured, you know, hey, let's throw some more horsepower at it and see what happens. I've gotten a lot of use out of this thing. Let's see what we can do. So Scottie turned her up. We made, like I said, right around 500 horsepower, and it was a fast unit. And we were never supposed to use this car for Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 3. It just wasn't in the cards. It ended up being in an emergency situation, and little did I know that would pretty much be the last time I would drive that car for a very, very long time. Now, the Icon crew and I had been going back and forth for months about the new script. Nick and Ernie had taken a more courageous leadership role in this video and kind of taken control of the creative reins, as you may. We decided that the video was definitely going to be shot in Albuquerque because it would be much cheaper to do that than anywhere else. Monster had also decided that they wanted a bigger stake in this video because of the success of the second one. They were kind of minimalistic sponsors for just Nick and Ernie. They didn't actually chuck in any towards the film. Now Monster wanted to host it on their YouTube page, so this was now serious business. I am not a Monster athlete, I don't get paid by Monster, so it was kind of awkward to have me in. I know that Monster was putting some pretty heavy pressure on Nick and Ernie to have Von Gittin Jr. in the video instead of myself. Thankfully, Nick and Ernie liked me enough to fight for me to keep my position as Officer Dan. Thanks, guys. So in the week leading up to everybody getting to Albuquerque to start filming, we started filming some B-roll and some of the stuff that we could knock out of the way without having to drive, without having to have a big film crew, and without having to have sponsors involved. So we started filming the intro sequences, the lead up to the video. We started filming me getting a haircut, all of the stuff that was going to lead up to the introduction of the 2 motorcycle guys being in jail. That was always supposed to be part of it, but the whole beginning had to change because of a stupid car that we got. Anyway, at this point I still had long hair. I'd been growing my beard out for the longest period of time that I ever had, and I was looking fully goddamn haggard. Like fully. This video was supposed to include me obsessed about the date that the motorcycle guys would be getting out of jail, and I would be preparing a Toyota Supra to go after them as soon as they actually got out. Now, keep in mind that I got fired for the antics of Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 2. So, technically, that was the plot. I was obsessing over the time that they got out of jail so that I could chase them again to relive those old glory days, so I was building a Supra. Anyway, we filmed all this stuff of us working on the Supra in this garage. I was fake welding on stuff and wrenching with wrenches that were the wrong size, and I was marking the engine bay with marks, counting down the days until they got out of jail. We filled the whole engine bay with those stupid marks. There wasn't a motor in it at this point, and if it was still the NA 2J, which we were supposed to swap out for a turbo 2J, which hadn't gotten here yet. We're like 2 weeks away from filming, and we're like, well, we'll just film all this other stuff until the motor gets here. No big deal. We also headed over to my buddy Santiago's salon that he worked at and did this whole sequence of me getting a haircut and just letting me spew Officer Dan goodness.
All right, sir, are you ready?
Sure thing. Santiago, your hands are magical. Oop, pulled a little bit. No big deal. Gotta look fresh. Them boys getting out of jail soon.
You know now they have shampoo, conditioner, and body wash.
You just blew my mind. Is this a good look?
It's amazing.
Okay, let's do this. I've been laying low, you know. I got put on a semi-permanent, quasi-logistical hiatus due to some minor infractions caused by myself and my weapon. And the world had just turned to chaos. I'll tell you what, everybody's drifting. I seen a little girl on a tricycle the other day drifting down the street. That's just ridiculous. Probably gonna get a cramp here pretty soon. Oh, there it is. All right, Santiago, you done me up right pretty.
You're looking good, man.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. It's time to groom this mustache. Hey, Santiago.
Yeah.
Which one of these here products did you put in my hair?
Here's this one.
Thanks, buddy. And now I'm going to circle back to what that Supra actually was. Nick Apex had picked up that Supra in Vegas. He had a off-road spec roll cage put in, and I remember the tubing being like this big and there being pipes everywhere. It was like a jungle gym inside that thing. I remember having to bolt the seat directly to the floor because my head was like this otherwise. It was also full metal wide body, but not in the good way that you would think. It looked haggard, which is perfectly what they wanted because I am not the best mechanic, even though I thought I was in the videos. They wanted it to kind of look shitty, like I had done it myself. Perfect. We also broke the back glass out of the Supra for some stupid reason. They had me film that in slow motion. I'm sure that footage is long gone. We slapped on a couple of cut knuckles, some extended lower control arms, and got everything prepared enough for when the motor actually got there, which happened about a week before we were actually supposed to start filming. Now, Car Crafters was too busy to actually put resources towards doing the Supra. Car Crafters did get it painted black. In this time period while we were waiting for the motor, we sent it over to them. They painted the whole thing black, single stage, fantastic. At least it was one color now, because when we got it, it sure as hell was not. RaceFab was too busy to do anything. So I reached out to Dave and Scottie at Motiva and said, hey guys, we're kind of in a pickle here. We really need to work on this Supra and get this motor swapped. It's now like 4 days until we're supposed to shoot, and we still don't have all of the stuff. We don't have the transmission, but we do have the motor. So Motiva says, hey, here's a corner. We just moved into a new shop. You guys can have this lift and all the tools that you need. We just can't give you any people to help you work on it. So my buddy Jeff Boardman, who I had mentioned in a couple of videos in the past, myself, Ernie, and Nick started mobbing on this thing as hard as we could. We got everything out. We got the new motor put in like record time. And then we started hitting issue after issue after issue with the injectors and the impedance and the ECU and the wiring, and it was just like, oh, okay, here we go again. As I've mentioned many times in my videos before, there's no way we're going to freaking get this done. Now, as we were working on all of that, I want to get back into kind of how the plot was supposed to be. I'd already mentioned that I was obsessing over Nick and Ernie getting out of jail, going through all the steps to actually get through that, and I was basically supposed to be in a race for time to finish the Supra before they got out of jail. Once they were out of jail, the world had kind of descended into a weird tangent of a drift apocalypse, is what they had called it, where people were just drifting everywhere. The world had gone crazy after Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 2, and for some reason those guys started it all, so they were kind of the heroes to all of the people that are just going apeshit on public streets. And that was to be the final shot before they got released from jail, was Officer Dan being reborn and peeping the amazingness that was his mustache. To kill some time, we also headed over to Car Crafters and did a mock Cribs episode where I kind of brought people around and showed all of Jim Guthrie's cool stuff off. Again, none of that stuff made it into the video, but we did like 32 gigabytes of filming inside of Jim's garage. Just epic, because he's got like 4 GTs and Ferraris and was just insane. It was really, really funny because you have to imagine Officer Dan pretending like all of that stuff was his. Idiot. I think the best part about that is I remember walking up with the guys filming, and I opened up this mini fridge that was in there, and just off of chance, the only thing in there was a bottle of mustard. And so I went off on this rant about how, oh, I like to keep things simple, and this is where I keep my mustard, and I like to put it on hot dogs. Or something to those lines, but it was really, really funny just freestyling and making up this whole thing about this character and all of the cool shit that he didn't actually have, that you could tell he didn't actually have. So we had a pretty good intro to the video done and shot. Now all we needed to have was a transmission and to fix all the woes that the motor swap was actually causing. It was all hands on deck at this point. The shoot was like 4 days away and the car still didn't run. Scottie from Motiva was like, there's absolutely no way you guys are going to finish this. You guys are morons. And I was like, yeah, we pretty much are. He's like, I wish I could help, but I can't. Sorry dudes, good luck. Have fun. So let's get back to Jeff Boardman. Jeff called in sick to work on this Supra. He also donated like half the parts he was saving to build his Mark IV that he was actually slowly building up over the years, and had to end up donating them to this cause. And I know that caused like a year's worth of pain in the ass for Jeff, because Jeff had to get paid back for those parts, and of course we spent all the damn money on the video shoot. So eventually he did get paid for those parts, I believe. Sorry if we didn't, Jeff. I really, really do, but thank you so much. You put everything into trying to get that stupid Supra running. Now Jeff is the resident Toyota expert, and come to think of it, Jeff is the resident everything expert. He's just one of those people that can memorize everything. You're like, oh, I need this bolt. And he's like, oh, that's the M5 whatever pitch thread thing, and it was manufactured in this thing in this year only, and in 1996 they switched to this bolt, which has a different head and it's slightly different thread pitch and length, and you're just like, how do you know all, why, Jeff? But Jeff knows, and Jeff has always known, and Jeff has never not known when I've asked Jeff a question. He's just one of those dudes. Love Jeff. Anyway, I believe Jeff provided an ECU, turbo, manifold, etc., 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 out of the goodness of his heart, just because he believed in this project. We got everything on, they finally got the injector issue sorted out, and the car actually started 2 days before we were actually supposed to shoot. We were freaking pumped. Now, in essence of the time shortage that we now had, instead of running a real exhaust down from the turbo, we decided to be complete morons and cut a hole in a perfectly good Supra hood. So we cut a 4-inch hole for a upturned down pipe, and then a smaller 2-inch hole for a wastegate, which we attached a flapper valve to, as you would. So now this Supra has a Haggard wide body kit, holes cut in the hood for a flapper valved tractor style exhaust, a broken out back windshield, a off-road spec roll cage, and it was supposed to be a drift car. This was breaking every single rule that Mark IV guys live by. But that was kind of the goal, is to piss people off about this Supra. Jeff had many, many reservations about the things and the way we were doing it, but we were like, no, we need to piss people off. And he was like, okay, touche, I see where you're going with this. We'll make it happen. He just needed to have his 2 cents made that what we were doing was blasphemy. Now, the day before we were supposed to go filming with the Supra, it was running great, and we headed out to Sandia to do some testing. Now, Achilles had actually partnered up with us for this event, and this was the first year that Daigo Saito was running Formula D. So the cheater tire 123S's were in full effect. We actually got a couple of them partitioned to us to use for this video. They sent us a bunch of Sport 2s and a couple of 123S's, and holy smokes, those tires were amazing. 265s had to have had as much grip as like a 315. No problem whatsoever. They definitely had more grip than the Falcon 295s the gym was letting us test on. Wow, what a difference. Anywho, got a couple hours of testing in, went through 2 full sets of Achilles, and had a blast driving the Supra. The Supra drove just like the Lexus SC300, so I was in love with it right away. It felt like home. Swap, it hardly had anything done to it. The suspension just had those really nice remote reservoir Fortunatos on it. We had some nice wheels that Nick got a sponsorship for. We had a racing seat that we were supposed to use from a company called Cypher Auto, but it was too tall, so I had to run my Momo in there and put tape over the seat. We ran one in the passenger seat though, but we just couldn't run it because it didn't fit in the car because the roll cage was too thick. So I had a blast testing, and I was really stoked for how this video was going to turn out. The car was making smoke, it was making the right noises, it had a flapper wastegate, and the motorcycles were getting dialed in as well. I was now +1 mustache and sans 1 long hair, and the Supra was putting a smile on my face like only a Supra can. Speaking of videos, that's where I'm going to end this particular one. I want to talk about the rest of the filming of Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 2 and how the Supra immediately became a disaster, destroying our entire first shot of the video, ruining it for the entire rest of the shoot, which is why my car hadn't been used in the first place. But I'll get into details about that later. So I'll see you guys next Monday with part 2 of Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 3. Catch you on the flip side, Officer Dan.